Hey, David Taub here, co-creator of NextLevelGuitar.com. Hope all's going well. Hope your guitar journey is going famously. And today I have a lesson for you on learning scales. I get a lot of emails and questions about, hey, what scales should I learn first and why? And what are the most important scales? And what's a good batting order for learning scales? These are great questions because there's so much information out there and so many scales, it could get overwhelming. And how do you know? And while what genre of music you want to play will guide it to some degree, there are some generalness that we can kind of go over. In my opinion, music is more than just the logical application of scales and theory, right? There's a human emotional element to music, and you want that to come across in your playing, right? So certainly bone up on this stuff and certainly study, but try to strike a balance. Study, bone up, but just grab your guitar and make some noise. Develop your ear and play these scales over chords and see what sounds best to your ear. And just lots of just application over jam tracks and having fun and making lots of noises and what sounds good. It's all about the sounds, right? So remember that human emotional element. That's what you really want to get across in your playing, right? The most common scale used in most genres of music is the pentatonic scale, right? The pentatonic scale, 70% probably of the time when you're hearing something, it's some type of pentatonic or some type of pentatonic mixed in, except maybe in classical music. But all other genres of music, it's the most commonly used scale. So a good place to start is learning the pentatonic scale. So here's the batting order. You want to learn minor pentatonic scale, you want to learn minor pentatonic and blues scales, and major pentatonic scales, because you want to be equipped to solo in both minor and major key, right? You want to be able to do both. So a good place to start is your minor pentatonic scale. Now I'll start going over some of the scales with you today so you could see them and start practicing them. We'll stay in A minor. It's nice in the middle of the fretboard. So a great scale for you to start with is your just A minor pentatonic Bach shape, right? This one. Okay, that's such a great scale, and scales are important because it's kind of the building blocks for solos and how you build chords, and you could write melodies and songs. The scales are just so important. So that's a great scale to start with. There's basically 5 of those Bach shapes. We'll give you the whole neck, but what you'll get the most use out of, I think, if you learn the expanded scale, where you're quickly connecting shapes together. So I suggest you learn this one next, which is the expanded 1 minor pentatonic scale. It looks like this. Awesome scale, very liquidy sounding. And you're moving across 3 Bach shapes, connecting them together. So learn the Bach shape, learn that expanded shape, and then I would say add 1 note to it to make the blues scale. So you want to learn your A blues scale, which only adds the flat 5. 1 note, looks like this. Right? And you can also learn the A blues expanded scale, or minor pentatonic and blues expanded scale. Okay, and as always, you want to know where the root notes are in those scales, because the root notes are notes you're going to be hovering around a lot, and you're going to be resolving a lot of your licks to those root notes. And if you get my ebooks where I have these scales drawn out, you're going to see those root notes diagrammed with the black ovals. In fact, if you want a free video lesson where I'm going to start you on some soloing techniques and tricks you could do to kind of spice up your soloing, but come with my ebook. And in the ebook, I diagram out tons of scales, all the scales I'm going to talk about today and more. Click on that link below. I'll send you a free video lesson and ebook from Next Level Guitar. So minor pentatonic and blues, and then you want to learn how to flip those into major pentatonic, because you want to be able to solo in minor key and in major key. So that's what I would say go after next, is major pentatonic. And you don't have to learn a whole nother 5 sets of Bach shapes for major pentatonic. You could just get to them through the relative minor and major, and I explain that in the ebook, so make sure you get that. But Basically, every major scale has a minor scale with exactly the same notes in it. So you're just kind of shifting your emphasis on where your root note is. And it's very easy. I explain it all in the ebook. But as far as a batting order, right? Go with your minor pentatonic, expanded scales, and then your major pentatonic. Then you'll have, for now, minor and major key covered. And when you're practicing these scales at first, too, make sure use alternate picking. Strict down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That's going to take you the furthest, the fastest. And practice them down and up, and maybe even put on a jam track. And I'll put some links to some free jam tracks in the YouTube description box below. It's good to practice over tracks because it makes it fun, more interesting, and also it gives you musical context. And then even if while you're practicing it, stop, hit a note twice, and all these lick ideas will start to come to you. Just playing that minor pentatonic and blues, expanded scale, right? Repeat the notes. And alternate picking up and back over a jam track is a great way to practice it. Even if it doesn't sound the most musical at first, it will. And the ideas will start coming. After you have your pentatonics down, minor and major pentatonic, I would say go after the natural minor scale, because blues rock guys, you're going to be playing in minor key a lot. And you can get a lot of mileage. And at first you could just learn maybe a couple of different shapes with low root off of the E and the A string, just to start, and then learn it over the whole neck. And I'll tell you how you can do that in a second. But natural minor scales are great because it adds 2 notes to the minor pentatonic scale, and it gives you half steps, right? Minor pentatonic, you're dealing with mainly 3 frets, minor third, and 2 frets, whole steps. We want to add those half steps in there because they're very melodic, and you'll get so much mileage out of the natural minor scale. I'll show you 2 different places you could play that at first. Let's go right off the 5th fret, our A note. Here's A natural minor, starting with the 5th fret, low E string root. And another great shape for that scale is off of the A string root at the 12th fret, A note. Okay, so knowing those 2 scales, practice them over the jam tracks. If you get the jam track coach, which I'll put the link for in the YouTube description box, what I told you about earlier, there's some tracks in the key of A. Those will work, so mess around with those over those tracks. Natural minor scales, you get so much use out of them. Next in the batting order, I would say go after your major scales, full major scales. Those are diatonic 7-note scales. Again, you'll have the half steps, and then you can get at the modes through knowing all your major scales. So that's why it's important, I think, to knowing your major scales up and down the neck in all positions. And again, I have all these scales diagrammed out in the ebook, so make sure you grab that by clicking on that link below. But your major scales are awesome, and that opens up the door to the modes, which leads me to the next set of scales. If you're a blues guy and a rock guy, I would say next on your batting order of scales after the major scales would be learning Dorian mode, Dorian scales, because you're going to be using those a lot. It's technically a minor mode, but you can use it over 1-4-5 major key blues, swings, and shuffles. So you can use it in major key a lot. So it's very, very useful. It's an awesome mode. So major scales, then go after Dorian, and then I'd say Aeolian, which is the same as natural minor. And if you know your major scales, don't be overwhelmed. You don't have to learn, 5 new shapes every time you learn a mode, because you can get them by knowing your major scales. You're just shifting the root note around. Sounds complex, but it really isn't. Again, I'm just kind of giving you a batting order here. So if you get Dorian, Aeolian, and Mixolydian would be a great one. Your Mixolydian mode, learning those scales and how to use those modes are great, because Mixolydian sounds so good over 7th chords, and it is a very common scale used, especially in blues and jazz. So there's a batting order to start with that I think makes sense. Go after your minor pentatonic scales first, blues scales, then go after your major pentatonic scales, which you can get at through the minor pentatonic, through the relative major, right? Then a couple shapes like I showed you for your natural minor scales, Aeolian mode, also called pure minor, all the same. Then your full major scales would be next in the batting order. And after that, you can get at the modes through the major scale. Go with Dorian, Aeolian, and Mixolydian. Okay? I think it's a really good logical order. And remember too that learning the scale is only half the battle, right? You have to learn how to use the scale, how to learn what chords you like to play the scale over, what sound good to your ear, and how to build licks with the scale. So learning scales are great, but remember, practice the application and apply them over jam tracks. Get the jam track coach. I'll send you 6 jam tracks and 2 ebooks. Click on that link below. And it's so important to study the relationship between scales and chords. That was a huge thing for me because it really started to open the doors as far as what scales I really liked best to play. Practicing them over and listening to how they sound over certain chords when you're jamming, right? And that really opens up a lot of doors. So studying the relationship between chords and scales is so important. Hey, don't forget, please subscribe to the channel. We so appreciate that, and that really, really helps us to keep the content coming. Check out some of those links below in that YouTube description box. Get the Jam Track Coach. Free jam tracks, free ebooks, and I'll put some other links down there you could check out. I'm David Taub, co-creator of Next Level Guitar. Thank you so much for your support over the years. So appreciate it. Let us know if you have any questions. We're here to help. Remember, your guitar playing is an evolution. I'll see you in the next lesson.